And I think a sign of knowing that you're doing something good that's resonating with people is when you have the people that hate you, that for what you're doing. But I think that's an opportunity to talk to that person or to find out what their issues are.
This is Synchronicity.
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 Welcome to episode 62 of Synchronicity. My guest today features the return of the one and only, the God, Vic Berger. Vic was one of my first guests, episode 7, I think. I'm pretty sure. Really, truthfully though, one of the best human beings I've ever met. I've known him now for a few years. We've never met in person. I'm sure we will soon, Vic. But just, you meet some people, whether it's online or in real life or wherever else. It's still real life online, right? And you just know that they're a great person. The more you get to know them, that's reinforced over time. And in addition to being a great person, Vic is supremely talented. We both went to Berklee College of Music. We kind of understand the other trials and tribulations that are associated with going to a music college. Vic is a tremendously gifted, sound like Donald Trump there, video editor though. Truthfully, he is one of the most talented people I know right now. The work he does is not only brilliant, it's hilarious. Just go check out his stuff if you haven't seen it. He does a lot of stuff with the collective Super Deluxe. Really another one of the true places I tune into quite frequently. I love Super Deluxe. A lot of the stuff they're putting together is really cool. But this episode isn't so much about his work. If you want to check, if you don't know who Vic is, I'm sure a lot of you do, but if you don't, go check out episode 7 to understand kind of what he does and how funny and great he is. This episode was kind of centered around, I originally had this scheduled with Vic, I think not too long after the election when Donald Trump was elected president. And we weren't anticipating that. And Vic, and I mentioned in another episode with Jay Weingarten, like Jay, Vic was also kind of devastated that Donald Trump was elected president, like a lot of people were. It was a shocking reality for a lot of people. It feels like we jumped into an alternative timeline, and now we just kind of have to deal with the ramifications. So we were speaking about that on and off, and eventually cajoled Vic into coming on again. He was very receptive, a kid. But I got him back on, and I was like, let's talk about this. Let's talk about how, A, what the fuck is going on? B, how difficult it can be for a comedian to be funny, especially someone who has satirized kind of the political process over the past year, especially now dealing with the reality that this person and the people he's surrounding himself are in power positions. It doesn't really necessarily feel like a funny thing to joke about sometimes. So we talk about that. We talk about staying positive. But the other thing we talk about, which took on of significant importance, especially in this past week, and this is December 21st, 2016, and this past week when this is being recorded, Vic got into kind of a Twitter spat with this alt-right figure whose name I won't mention. It's not worth it. People like him will come and go, no matter how important or powerful they seem because of social media. When someone is basing their life and their message and their public persona in lies and hateful rhetoric, and just, it's, that doesn't end well for that person. It's hard. But anyway, here's the thing. A lot of this conversation we talk about here is how to deal with people who have so much hate. Truthfully, when Donald Trump in one of the debates says, you have a lot of hate in your heart. That was a lot of people no, you do. And it's easy for people to see, but how to deal with people who really do have a lot of hate in their heart and are expressing that and don't have any problems expressing that. How do you deal with that? And so we talk about that in this episode, but also Vic has been dealing with the situation where this guy online basically unleashed his army of trolls to attack Vic on social media, to threaten him. A terrible situation. I know very few people who deserve this less than Vic. There's no one, what he's going through in the past week, especially does not deserve. But anyway, the question comes up is, How do you deal with people like this? First of all, Vic has to do what he has to do to protect himself and his family. That becomes, before any philosophical debate about any of this shit, that's the most important thing. Let's be very clear about this. What this guy doing, it seems to me, is illegal and should be dealt with in some way through the legal process. And I'm sure that's going to happen. But what do you do philosophically when you have people attacking you, attacking your family, verbally, escalating points, encouraging violence? Like, how do you deal with that shit? Because the natural response, at least for me, is to get super angry, right? And I think a lot of people, when they read this and they hear about this, and there's links to what's specifically going on with Vic on mindpodnetwork.com, this episode, and syncpodcast.com/Vic and the number 2, because this is his second appearance. You can find the link in New York Mag. Great article, which I highly recommend you check out. It's by Jesse Single. I hope you're saying your name right, Jesse. But go check that out for details on what I'm talking about. But the question is this. How do we meet people like this? Is it possible to even have a dialogue with these people? I don't know, really, truthfully. I don't have an answer for that. I'm sorry. I wish I had a better one. But I think the only thing, what I know won't work is if we meet their shittiness with more shittiness. And whether that means disengaging and not just, completely ignoring and not having to deal with it, that seems like a valid way. Whether it's actually reaching out and trying to deal with them, trying to crack through the stoicism and the armor and whatever the conditions are that allowed people to be like that. I don't know. That's something that like Van Jones is doing, and I think it's worthy. But these are big questions, and I think what we can't do is just evolve into like hatred and fucking around with other people. I think there is a level of authority that we need to impose. Can't let this shit go unchecked, right? That's for sure. Like there is definitely a level of this where we don't just lay down for shit like this when it happens. But I think there's another kind of middle ground, the middle way where we can try to figure out like what the fuck is going on? Why would someone do this? Why would this guy accuse Vic of the things he's accusing him of? Like, there's reasons for that, right? And he does it a lot. Just to be clear, this guy is going around accusing everyone of being a pedophile. We talked about Pizzagate a little bit. I talked about it last week a little bit, and like how this fake news stuff is just like a perversion of propaganda and preying on people's fears and horrible things, but it's actually motivating people to do fuck up shit. So this is an issue, and there's a lot of other issues that are going to come up, but I think we got to be really smart about this one, because when we see people like Vic getting harassed online because he did something that someone doesn't like, that's not cool. That's not cool. So support Vic. I've rambled on enough. I hope you enjoy this episode. I think it's going to come through. Like, we laugh a lot, even though we're talking about some serious shit. Vic is just a great guy. Lots of love to him. Lots of love to everyone listening. Say that in the least mushy, corny way possible. Happy holidays. Christmas is coming up. I'm a big Jesus fan. I'm born Jewish. I'm a pantheist. I believe in a lot of different religions and the values they hold. I especially think Jesus is a great figure to look at. Strip away all of the Christianity kind of, church imposed tithing and taxing and all of that stuff. And I think there's some really great messages in Christianity. So happy birthday, Jesus, even though we don't know if you were born then. I'm done. I'm done. I'm officially done. Thanks to everyone who has rated and reviewed Synchronicity. Subscribe if you like the show. Without further ado, here is Vic Berger.
Oh, you are? Okay, awesome. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And we're good.
Cool, man. Seriously though, thank you for coming back on. It's funny when I think I forget exactly when we had this scheduled, last week or 2 weeks ago. It was when you hit me up and you're like, man, listen, I don't know. I don't know if I can do this. And I told you, like, Jay Weingarten, who I just had on again, he said the same exact thing. He's amazing.
He's the best.
But he said the same thing. He was like, I don't know, like, I'm not feeling right. Like, I don't know how to process all this stuff. And what we're referring to is Trump being elected president and seemingly all of the horribleness that's happening. And I was like, I did the same thing with him that I basically did with you, which is half attempted to cajole you to still do it. And then also just like, I totally get it and understand, because this is like a, revolutionary shift in how at least we perceive what's going on with our world. Because I'm sure you're like me, whether I respect or like politicians, I like to believe that they have some semblance of an idea of what's going on. Because if not, then what the hell is going on? So this kind of disproved that. So, I mean, I'd like to jump in there, man. Like what's it been like because a big part of what you have done, with your videos and, your whole Trump Instagram was essentially try to, make light of Trump running for president. I remember when we first started getting to know each other, you were doing the Trump for Pres stuff, and Donald Trump actually retweeted one of your like ridiculous, grotesque pictures that you made of him. And I was dying laughing at this. I'm like, how silly is this guy? And this is, I don't know, 2 years ago, we were probably laughing, thinking this was a joke. And then lo and behold, he's elected president. So like, what does that do for your psyche, knowing this is someone you have like parodied and mocked basically for 2 years, and now he's the leader of the free world in a month?
Yeah. Like 2.5 years ago, it was just like it was like this running joke on his Twitter almost that like, he's going to run for president, he's going to win. And if he runs, he's definitely going to win. And I don't think anybody really believed it would be a possibility, even him, and I just, would do these things where I would just make this horrific Photoshop of Trump's face with his neck all flared up and, his eyes, whatever. And sometimes like his teeth would be upside down. It's just like really gross stuff. And I would make his like cheeks real rosy. And of course I would like turn up the saturation and make them all orange and everything, which like, by the way, that like, I don't have to do much to make him look oranger than he already is. Cause like all you do is just bump up the saturation. I'm not adding like an orange, hue or anything to him. That's his natural skin tone if you just saturate it a little bit. But so I would make these things, and then I would just attach a compliment, like a really dumb compliment, like if you run for president, I'll vote for you. Got my vote, or there'd be misspellings and all these things, and so then I would send it to him, and then of course now and then he would accidentally retweet them, and or no, I don't know, or maybe he was just playing along. I don't know, like he was fun to fuck with, and he was just, because he was just like this joke, and like he was a punchline for so many years. I mean, it just like everything about him is funny and unintentionally funny, I think, for him. Just looking at pictures of him in his home, or how he ran. He started on the day he came out saying he was going to run for president. He came down on an escalator. Like how gaudy and this guy's clearly like his taste formed in the 80s. And they just never really went beyond that. So everything is just gold for him, and just gaudy and embarrassing in a way. At least I think so. Even though he's got supposedly billions of dollars, his tastes are still stuck in the 80s and everything. And just I don't know, it's just a joke and a clown. And you would never even until election night. Like I'm thinking, there's no way. It didn't even like cross my mind that like this actually might happen, and then it did, and I don't know how I didn't know how to deal with it, and so I got really drunk that night, and just I slept maybe 15 minutes that night, and I think a lot of people probably did the same thing, just processing it and just being like how could this happen? How I've got you've got a young kid too, and we've thinking of my kids growing up in this world where the bully and this horrible human being is in charge. This disgusting, vile creature has won, and he proved everybody wrong, and he's on top now, and he's the most powerful person on the planet.
Right. So, and it seems like why I think it's such a shock for so many people. It seems like exactly what you said, like the bully won, like the person who's not supposed to win in the movie, the evil character who no one wants to win actually won. And that's like a really tough thing to have to try to process in the world, because that's not every story we're ever pitched in, and in what we intuitively feel as well, that's not how things work. Like you're the hero of your own story. The good guys win. So, I mean, of course, we know, on the other hand, that that's not exactly how life works. Like, things aren't hunky-dory all the time. So, like, we know that that's not going to happen. So, what's interesting to me about this whole Trump thing, and one of the reasons I think I probably seem to a lot of people of like my friends who are still very, very upset about it. And I'm not delusional. I'm not happy that Trump is our president. But one of the reasons I think I was somewhat buffered by this is, while I was just like you, I didn't think he was going to be president. It didn't actually even register as a possibility. Yeah. Him actually being president doesn't surprise me that much. And it's interesting over the past month, it's almost been a month since he was, elected, seeing what's been happening. And like, a lot of people are like, give him a chance, we'll see what he does. And like, let's be clear, like his cabinet, appointments, the people he's surrounding with himself, like these are not good people. Right. These aren't people who have our best interests and a lot of the populace's interests and control. And he's really looking like less of a disruptor and more of just kind of an establishment, basically another form of the establishment with like kind of a weird twist, like a weird, bizarre kind of like twist. Like it's funny because, we look back at like George W. Bush and like, oh God, like remember how much we disliked him. This is kind of what we imagine George W. Bush to be. That's who Donald Trump actually is. Like he is this kind of blubbering, crazy, nonsensical, doesn't know what's going on. Like I always remember the clip of George W. Bush playing those drums at that like African ceremony, being a goofball. It's like one of the funniest things. I feel like that's how Donald Trump he's just always playing those drums. He's just always being a goofball, but there's this serious kind of sinister edge to him, which is a little darker that I think freaks people out. So the reason, and we were talking about this, I think last week when we were scheduling this one, you were saying like, listen, man, like, I just get so angry sometimes. And especially when you're thinking about like, you just have, you have Ruby, you have Owen, your children, I have Eli. Like it gets really weird when you start thinking about your children, like yourself, you can kind of put a buffer like, oh, it's okay, I'm going to figure it out. But when you're thinking about kids, it gets difficult. But one of the reasons I'm not super freaked out about it is what I think this election really helped people process is, or people are still processing this is, it's easy to say there's 60 million racist bigots, deplorables, horrible people. But the fact of the matter is, it's like, that's not the case. Like people may have been tricked or cajoled or pitched a story that got them to vote for Trump. And what I'm seeing now, and this is the main thing that's kind of disturbing me a little bit about the whole Trump thing is people on the left, people who don't agree with Trump because of his policies and the things he said. And clearly, there's, he's by all accounts a misogynist and probably a bit of a racist and has no problem inflaming people. Right. But as much has been said about him, like I hate to see the vitriol and hatred come up from the other side, because this is my basic theory of how we get people like Donald Trump. And this has been fleshed out with some guests I've had on the podcast. I'm actually releasing one today that really is a very interesting thing. This guy Bard, who I had on, has this theory called boarding school culture. And this is essentially what he describes. And he went to a boarding school and he's like, listen, a lot of the wealthiest people from around the world send their children at a very young age to boarding schools and military schools, which is a very traumatic experience for most kids, right? You're getting stripped away from your parents. You're getting stripped away from what you're being told at the same time that this is such an amazing opportunity. Only the most privileged people get to go to these places. And lo and behold, you're stuck in a place where it's a bunch of other kids, young males, don't know what's going on. They've been ripped from their families. And of course, this culture emerges that's very, it doesn't help a young kid to develop emotionally and intuitively. Right. And what it does foster is this kind of stiff upper lip, having to be very stoic, get what you want because you work hard. If you hurt other people, that's just a cost of the price. It's a dog eat dog world. You got to do what you want. So then look what happens. We're creating this culture at a very young age of these people who come from the elites of the world. Then what happens? Then they go to colleges. They go to the Harvards. They go to the Oxfords. They go to the Princetons. They go to the Yales. Then what happens? They're carrying all this trauma with them, right? They've had fucked up lives, right? God knows this is generationally. It's a cyclical thing. Then what happens out of their college? They're placed into these institutions, right? These government institutions, business institutions, corporate institutions, all these things. And these are the leaders of our society, whether we like it or not. These are the people. So there's twofold to this. That's a nice explanation of what's going on. But the other part of it is like, if you saw a little boy Donald Trump, who read his father was an asshole, getting savaged by his dad, just like emotionally, physically, you'd feel bad for him. You'd say, oh my God, like this little boy Donnie is like, I feel bad for him. It's hard for us to see when we see someone like Donald Trump saying the things he's saying, look at him as someone who's experienced a ton of trauma. Yeah. And I'm not saying let's be compassionate and nice to Donald Trump. Let's forgive everything he's done. But what the only antidote as I see it to all of this stuff is understanding, number one, as much as he doesn't seem like a person, Donald Trump's a person too. All of these sessions, all these people who are just not great people. Let's just put it like that. They have a lot of things they're carrying around. We have to be able to get past that. And especially when it comes to like the people who voted for him and look at the reasons that they did. And sure, some of it may just be racism and horribleness. And, they're just not, they just don't like other people. And there's really not so much you can do there. But if we can kind of, this is always a reason I've been a fan of your work since like the early days, because you have a way of taking characters who are very unsavory and sometimes just weird, but presenting them just with their own words. You're not adding really too much outside of like an air horn here or there. You're not adding too much to it.
Like I'd say like 95% of the time it is what they're actually saying.
That's right. So it's, and I remember our last conversation, you said something that really stuck out with me and it still sticks with me to this day. It's just, you're not trying to be a hate-based comedian. Your comedy it's based on reality being weird, which is funny, and you're tweaking it to show the weirdness. And I think that form of comedy, that form of art, whatever it is really like one of the biggest antidotes we have to this stuff. So like when I was checking in with you, I'm like, listen, man, I just got to make sure Vic's okay. I don't want him to lose that good-natured lightheartedness, because
I know.
And I know like it must be like somewhat of a burden for you, because like, I was talking about this with Jay. Jay's like, when I'm upset, when I'm depressed, I don't feel funny. Like I don't feel like being funny at that point, and it's really tough as a comedian to kind of get into that mindset. Yeah.
Like when after Trump won, I took 2 weeks off. I couldn't I couldn't like find the funny in anything, so I really just needed a break, from that. But I know what you're saying, like Trump is a person, and but I will say, like, and I've made videos of where he's like the pathetic, loser, but those were the toughest to make, because he does have this, to use his phrase, a wall. He has a wall up, and it's pretty powerful, and he doesn't break. He's pretty unflappable, but he does have his flaws, and if you, like you're saying, like if you think about his youth and everything, I'm sure he has a life that almost nobody really has had, and he has been, abused or whatever it is that his parents may have done to him, or not shown him enough love, or whatever it is, so you can look and see the person in there, but he's definitely the toughest for me to have empathy for, just because of the way he reacts, or like if somebody presses him or hurts him, as he says, he's going to hurt them back, and
that's right,
and he'll get he'll damage them even more than they damaged him.
I know, and this is one of the reasons I really like Donald Trump, which is why my wife, whenever she hears me say anything close to that, freaks out and yells at me. It's because he is such a great mirror, not only for ourselves but also for our collective society. Like there's this big theory going around that the reason Trump really came to prominence is because we live in a narcissistic society, and this is a perfect reflection of that. And I tend to agree. Culture reinforces narcissism, materialism, and this is what we would naturally get. I don't think it's that crazy of a thing. But, it's trying to figure out what makes... Here's the thing. When I look at Donald Trump and he reacts to someone saying negative things about him, it's really easy to say, look at this jerk. Look at this. Look at this idiot. Why is he being such an asshole? He's supposed to be presidential. He's supposed to be, come on. Well, you're not taking this seriously. And then, but then I look at my own life, And there's so many times where I've done Trump-like things. No, I'm not a racist. No, I'm not a xenophobe. But sometimes someone will criticize me and I'll lose my fucking mind. Like I will just get really upset. I'll be like, no, like, what do you mean? And so this is what
go, okay.
No, please.
No, I was going to say, like, I mean, but you're not president, you're
of course.
And I think, I mean, I would say, he is human and he has his downfalls and everything, but I don't, is that a,
no, it's not
is
an
that
excuse.
a trait that we want to,
No,
like
I totally get it.
So
I look at it like this. Of course, my decisions and my temperament they don't need to be better because I'm president. They need to be better because it's my life and I don't want to carry around that stuff. So there's the kind of mental games that I play with myself to kind of to make Trump presidency palatable. The first thing is that I think this needed to happen. I think if this wouldn't have happened, let's say Hillary would have been president, who I voted for, didn't love her, but I voted for her.
Right.
We would have had the status quo too, but there still would have been 60 million people who were willing to vote for Trump. And to dismiss that as a fact, it would be doing that's why everyone on the coast, right? You live in Pennsylvania, so it's a little bit different, but it's split depending on where you are regionally. But if you live on one of the coasts, this is like a travesty that you can't comprehend. But if you're living in the middle of the country, this is a predictable thing that is a necessary, so that's one thing. So I think it's important that it happened because we have to start dealing with these deep-seated issues.
And it kind of brought out, this, I mean, he did like cater his message to those people, that do think that are like afraid of having a black president or that he's given a voice to those that that work blue collar jobs or stuff like that. But even though he's insincere and generally Democrats fight for union workers and laborers and those kind of people, but he gave them that voice. He sold this this thing that's basically a lie.
Well, he was a snake oil salesman.
Yeah, that's totally what he is.
That's his job.
Exactly.
It's been his job. If you look at his business endeavors, that's his best skill. That's what, that's why giving him the platform of the TV show was, such a big coup for him because he got to put out his brand that gave him mass consciousness. I mean, it's a whole thing. So that's one aspect is that he's a person who's there. And I think it's a good thing. The other aspect of it that gives me like a lot of hope. So the day after he got elected, I'm here 15 minutes from DC, and I was at Whole Foods getting some food, right? And the cashier was a black woman foreigner. She had an accent, and she was saying something. Her and the other cashier were talking about something, and I was like, I thought it was about politics. I was like, what are you guys talking about? And she got a little weird. She didn't know if I was like a Trump person or anything. And she's like, we're talking about the election. I was like, yeah, like what? It's just pretty crazy. I didn't expect this to happen. And this is someone who has literally every single reason to be terrified and scared for their like physical safety, for their future safety, for their security. And what she said to me was, I'm really not upset at all. This is, in my experience in my life, and she was like middle-aged, not too old, but she's like, this is the time when people come together locally, family, and they start building and working things because this is a sign that things aren't the way we thought they were. And I'm like, shit, if this lady who literally, like, I'm a white dude, I can walk down the street pretty much anywhere and no one's going to give me any trouble. The only time I ever got trouble, when I had dreadlocks as a white guy and I went down to North Carolina and got yelled at by a few people, like that was it. And I can cut my hair. So
cut them off like right there in front of them.
So that gave me hope. But the reason it gave me hope is specifically what she said is like, listen, yes, Donald Trump is going to be sitting at Pennsylvania Avenue making horrible policy decisions. But what we can still control is how we approach our day-to-day lives, how we interact with our family members, how we interact with our friends, what we choose to do in the community. And that always promotes far more change than any nationwide federal policy that's enacted by some numbnuts who's sitting, in the White House. So I take all of these things together, and then I ask the question, is like, okay, we're in a fucked up situation. We're clearly in this weird transitional point where no one has any idea what's going on. Like I had an inkling that was the case in like school and high school and stuff. Like I don't think anyone knows what's going on. Now we know for sure no one has any idea what's going on, especially the people who say they do. So I look at this less as like a apocalyptic scenario and more of a scenario that allows us the ability to create what we want to create. It's a very uncertain time, but with the uncertainty provides a tremendous amount of opportunity. And I've been, in the month since he's been elected, I have to say, like, I've met so many incredible people because he was elected. A lot of the conversations center around Donald Trump and the things that, he's doing. But the conversations are generally very, very positive, even if a little scary because of the state that we're in. So it really leaves me hopeful. Like, there's a shitload of work to do. Like, I don't want to say, like, we're good. Like, Donald Trump is, is a great thing that happened. In the same way, like, this is another scenario I'll give to kind of highlight what I'm trying to get at. Like, if you experience the loss of a loved one, or you experience the loss of a relationship, or if you lose your job and are in desperate straits, at the time, there's almost nothing worse than the suffering that you experience in those moments. It's like, it's almost impossible to see out of that situation. But when you look back, if, assuming you got out of it okay, and you're listening to this, you're probably okay. But when you look back, often you'll say, like, that really fucked up, horrible situation, that period of my life, actually, I grew more then, learned more about myself and life and everything at that really difficult time than I did when everything was good and everything was comfortable and all my needs were met and everything was great and everything was happy and everything was wonderful. You actually can grow a lot more during these difficult times. So I look at this kind of like a collective opportunity for us to, like, put stuff out into the world. That's kind of how
I think that's great. And your positivity, hopefully it wears on me, or it works with me. I think you let it rub off a bit. I really like that. And I mean, thinking back, like when I was let go from a job because they couldn't afford to pay me or whatever, years ago, and then you get together and figure out what's important, what you want to do with your life, and like it's kind of like a reset button in a way, I guess, or
that's right,
to get stronger. And I think Trump did expose a lot of this stuff that may have been under the surface and brought it up, and now we can it was burning, so maybe we can hose it down and and figure out a way to come out stronger. And so I think it's good to be positive. It's not easy. I think we should stay positive, and more people like you need a voice. I get so just letting because I'm alone a lot during the day when I'm editing and everything. So it festers, in my head. And it's not good to go on Twitter so much because I follow a lot of reporters. And they're putting up everything that Trump, every little thing that Trump says, even though they're not little things anymore because he is president. So I read everything. And it's like, oh Jesus, he said this, he's going to do this, and he appointed this person and everything. So I totally get it. It's just so I do I want to be able to find a way to stay positive. And I think you told me to when you're angry, say to yourself that you are angry. And then move on, then recognize when you're angry.
That's the only thing, right?
I think that was a good tip that you gave me that helps me. But collectively as a nation, we need to be able to do the same thing in a way.
That's the thing. And this is where I look to how do we enact large scale change, right? Because this is something that everyone is concerned about. This is why we have government to run large scale change. And paradoxically, what I've found in my life, that anytime I've done something outside of my own little circle or done something that I think is greater than myself, it typically has to start with yourself. You're not going this is the famous thing at peace rallies, right? It's you ever notice how many people you see at peace rallies screaming peace, peace? It's like that's not actually how you do it. That is never going to achieve peace. What you're bringing to the situation is not peace. That means you can't create it there. So this is why. And I totally hear you. I also am alone, the majority of the day sitting, doing my work. And I also have this influx of information. And I'm very careful about, the people on my Facebook feed and my Twitter feed. But
Sure.
of course, I have people who I admire and respect, and they're putting out the stories, and I don't mute them. I read the stories, and especially after like the first week. I remember the day after the election, I said, I'm not reading any more news. I don't want to know about this. I'm going to go back to when I didn't care about politics. And what do I do every single day since then? Read every fucking story. I'm seeking this stuff out. I'm not even like going and letting it passively come to me. I'm going to my news app on my phone and reading. I'm like, he did this. Steve Bannon, are you kidding? Like it's like nonstop. So it's habitual, and it's something that I think it's very difficult to combat the media consumption and how that can shape us. But what we can do in the same way, like when I was saying, like, note that you're angry. And that's not to say like you note that you're angry and then you're not angry anymore. That is not how it works. Like anyone who thinks that that's like this, that's not how it works. But what it does is when you note how you're feeling, you build up a memory of all these times you noted that you were feeling like this. And then you start to see these patterns. And then eventually, and this is why some people meditate, this is why people take psychedelics, this is why people do any number of things, is eventually what happens, a teeny tiny little gap opens up in between you getting angry, getting the source of the thing that makes you angry, and actually getting angry. And this is where I am in my life right now, because I'm not a great meditator. I don't do this all the time as much as I talk about it. But when I'm like getting in an argument with my wife or a friend, I can now notice myself getting angry as I'm getting angry. I can't stop it. Don't get it twisted. I cannot stop it. But I notice it, and it's a very interesting thing to have a part of your brain go, you're getting angry. And then another part saying, shut the fuck up. I don't give a shit about. But the thing is over time, it's like a muscle. You develop the skill that when you find something like Donald Trump, and we all have our triggers, right? And unfortunately, Donald Trump and the alt-right and all of these people, and for good reason, get to a lot of people. It's just something that's so unpalatable that it stokes the inner fire in us. Now, the trick is, because you were talking about like, how do we heal as a nation? How do we kind of deal with this? The trick is I have a hard time doing this in my personal relationships. When it comes to people like Donald Trump and political realm, it's easier for me to see it more as like a game to be played. The stakes are very serious, but I can say, okay, I'm getting angry at Donald Trump. Do I really need to be angry at Donald Trump right now? Like, can I try exploring the possibility of what it's like not to be upset about this? Right. That then opens up a ton of possibilities in terms of how do you want to approach it? Because, like, let's be real, like, you've done this in your life, probably not very consciously, though. What all of your art, all of your comedy stuff, your videos around Donald Trump is essentially doing that. There's the point where you look at the guy and you go, oh, fucking shit, this guy is doing, oh my God. And then you say, you know what? There's something there that I can amplify, make funny, and show people that this is like not as serious as it needs to be. Right. But of course, it's below the threshold. Like to you, it's just a process. It's a protocol that you're running, but bringing it to the forefront, I think you'd see like you have a real like your skill and talent, your ability to take things that are dark, nefarious, and just immediately transfer them, kind of transmute them into something hilarious, funny, silly. Like we spoke about it in the last podcast we did together, but that's like a magic trick. That's like a real skill that not a lot of people possess, because what happens to most people, you and me included, when we see something that makes us angry, we get angry and we react. But there's always other ways. And this is why I dwell on this so much, because what we're talking about now, this is how we fix problems in our own lives, in our friends' lives, in our community, nationally. Like that's how you do it. You have to recognize there's other possibilities when you see something that's wrong. Right. And then the other thing, the caveat I'll put here is when we're talking about things like compassion, empathy, non-judgment. If people hear those three terms in relation to the alt-right, to Nazism, to Steve Bannon, to Donald Trump, a tendency is to say these are soft, mushy words that do not apply to these situations. What I'm supposed to just lay down and take these people ruining my country and ruining the people's lives, that's not what we're advocating, or I'm advocating. What I'm saying is if you can shine that lens and look at Donald Trump as a wounded person, it doesn't mean you have to love him. It doesn't mean you have to think, oh, what a poor guy, Donald Trump. Let's just let him do what he wants. His daddy was mean to him. What it means is it's like, now I have more understanding of why this person is that way. And once you have more perspective and understanding, you get to figure out other little inroads. Like this is what Donald Trump did. He just did it the reverse. He figured out little things he could do and say and act a certain way to get people to do things. Yeah. But if you flip it around and to do that in a way that kind of
do
gets
the opposite
through
of what he did.
Exactly.
Follow his path, but do it opposite. That's do it in a more positive way.
That's it. Because
smart,
you got to look at the people who are effectively able to do this. Like there's that famous Ku Klux Klan member, white supremacist. His name is escaping me, but then he became friends with the black guy.
Is it David Duke? Is that who it is?
No, not David Duke. He's horrible.
Yeah.
But there is a guy who became friends with the black guy, and then basically realized that everything he had been taught, everything he grew up with was just bullshit. It wasn't real. It didn't actually mean anything. It was not truthful in any way. And he then spent, and I think he's still alive today, spent his entire life saying this is wrong. Racism is wrong. I met someone, my views have been shifted. This is why they say travel is the best cure for racism. When you go and meet other people and see that they're just people too, it's harder to say, well, you're not a human being anymore. Fuck you. You don't matter. So it's hard. It's hard for us. What's funny is Donald Trump's black people, Mexican people, women, that's who those people are to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is our black people, is our Mexicans. You know what I mean? That he's the person who's our enemy, quote unquote. So we have to try to do the same things we would want him to do for those people. It's really fucking hard.
It's very tough.
it's one of the hardest things, but this is why I'm so keyed in to this time where we are now is when something's hard, that usually means there's something worthwhile there. It's not hard for no reason. It's not just some difficult, hopeless, shitty situation. There is some kernel of truth to be pulled out of this. There is some positivity, not because I'm an eternal optimist or delusional, because I've seen this happen. I've seen enemies become friends. I've seen people hold very staunch, rigid viewpoints of the world and people and have those change.
Right. That's what I'm wondering, is there a way to have him, sit down with more people that he, that supposedly oppose him, or that he doesn't like Al Gore went in the other day, you know what I mean, to talk about global warming, and Trump, for years has said how it's a hoax by the Chinese government, and and all these wind farms are ugly. I don't want them on my property and stuff like that. But I think. I didn't get to hear too much about what Gore said, how the meeting went, but I think that is what is going to take so Trump doesn't destroy all the progress that has been made, and halt progress, with just conversations with people that are different than him. Don't let him be in this bubble with, Bannon in charge and all these other people. But it does scare me when he's appointing people like Bannon or for instance, the head of the EPA is a guy that doesn't believe.
Myron.
You know what I mean? God. So it's this extreme. Yeah, I forget what it is. Myron something. So he's appointing these extreme people. And the Secretary of Education is somebody that hates public education.
Right.
So, and these people, they're not qualified. How about Ben Carson?
Ben Carson. These hands.
He's a surgeon. Yeah, he's got good hands, but what does he know about
urban development?
Urban development. What does he know about that? I mean, so
he's
that's
black. That's what he knows. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. Trump saw the word urban and he's like, "Oh, Ben, get Ben on the phone." so I mean, so it is. I don't know what it would take. I mean, it just seems like he doesn't really want to do anything.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean. When you're looking at these appointments, so it's
I look at it like this. This is my maneuver around that.
Help me out here.
I will help you out with that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
You got
I don't think I think it's possible, but I'm not very optimistic about this. I don't think we're going to see a lot of top-down change over the next 4, potentially 8 years. I can't imagine he gets elected for 2 terms, but I couldn't imagine he gets elected one.
I don't think he's going to want to run for a second. I think he's going to be like, it's so much work. And
you pointed it out. We know he didn't want to be president. He doesn't want to be president.
Yeah, there's that picture of him on election night that like made me. That was like the first time when I saw that. I was like, oh my god, there is a little humor in it because everybody around him is celebrating the win. Like his son Eric is in the back, like with his hand, like he's like pumping his arm, and everyone's like high fiving. And then you just see Trump with his hand like on his face, just like staring at the screen. Like, holy shit, I won. Like probably just like sat there cold for like 10 minutes.
Well, it's like, perfect karma for him.
Right.
He's getting the job he's never wanted, the worst job in the country. It's not fun. There's no real glamour to it. And now this is him.
And he's got to live in this like dump, the White House, compared to
Melania and Barron don't even want to move there. They're like, no, this place sucks. I'm going to stay in my gilded castle, please. Yeah. I mean, here's the way I look at it. Here's how I get around it.
Go ahead.
Okay. So the top-down method of change, I think is, I don't want to say antiquated, but it's not suitable for where we are right now. So to think that, yes, I hope that Trump meets, one of the positive things I will say about Trump is he does seem that he takes on the character of people who he's around. Like the meeting with Obama was a very great example of this. Like he became very deferential, very respectful, very, he was admiring him. So I think his real character is one who wants to please people and be liked and respected. So that's
why he like has like on every issue that's out there. That's why he has like both opposite ends, like are his what he stands for. It depends on the room he's in.
That's right.
But that's also scary though, because like it makes me think like that, like Bannon is in charge, and that like you were saying, like about having some empathy for Trump, like that. The only time like I've been like really feeling bad for Trump is thinking of him being used, manipulated by all these people,
and he is. You know what I mean? And he is. They're smarter than him. Like he's he's not a moron as we would like to think, but he's reactive and easily manipulated. Right?
Yeah, because he doesn't know. He's not really qualified for the job, and he doesn't know enough about how the world works or the country, especially.
He doesn't even want to either. It's not like he has the desire to learn.
Like, that sounds good, Steve. Yeah,
whatever.
All right.
Yeah, sure, Steve. No juice. Whatever.
Yeah, give me the pen. I'll sign. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so here's my point.
Yeah, go ahead. I keep cutting you off.
No, I keep digressing. Yeah. So the thing is it's not going to be a top-down change. I think this is like asking Wall Street to regulate themselves. That's not going to happen. They don't even regulate themselves when the government says, hey, you need to be regulated. They don't do it. So what I think that means is that, again, puts the onus on people like you and me. It says, listen, if we want something to change in our world, we need to start working towards that. And it doesn't mean we become community activists overnight and we start doing all these things. We do what we can do. For you, that's making funny videos that are shining a light on various characters in our society that give people an opportunity to say, oh, what's really going on here? For me, that's talking about this stuff with various people on my podcast and creating a network to talk about alternative things that aren't transparent. That's everyone's job, to continue to do what you do based on where you want to be. Because like I said, I know that Trump is going to dismantle a lot of things that are, social welfare programs, things that aren't going to actually affect me as much as other people. And it's going to be a shitty situation. But knowing that, this is why, a lot of people, like the alt-right, how does the alt-right deal with when people talk about how white men have privilege? They get furious. They say, God damn it, no. But the way I look at it, when they say white men have privilege, I go, definitely. I've been the beneficiary of that. But that also puts us in an incredible position to kind of work from the inside out on how to change some of these situations, how to, promote dialogue between people who don't disagree. This is why I've been tremendously impressed with Van Jones, who's been going around, because he gets it, man. Like he gets it. He's tuned in to like what is actually important. And I think his long-term view extends well past, his lifetime. I mean, this is something he's talking about, things where people have to come together and learn how to talk to people who disagree with them without making them the enemy. That's
he's
that's powerful
great.
stuff.
When we did the election special in Cleveland, we were just walking down, looking to see what's going on the main street, and on the side street as we're passing by, we see people starting to huddle around, and it turns out it was InfoWars confronting Van Jones in the middle of a street. Christ. Like they yelled to him from like across the street from a restaurant, and just showed up with cameras, and we watched the whole thing, and he just he knows these people hate him, and he knows that they're crazy and they have all these conspiracy theories. But he managed to, by the end, they shook hands and they were like laughing, and it's just going to take more people like that, I think, to be in charge and to bring people together.
And it's
fascinating. Like I don't think I could pull that off, really.
No, it's hard, but it really depends on the person. Like, we've never met in person, but I've seen enough of you, and we've spoken, and we kind of have a good feeling. Like, the truth is like when you put someone who's a good, compassionate person in a difficult situation, typically that will come through. Their compassion and how they are. It's how. Because that's your true colors. And that's why someone like Van Jones, I mean, like, talk about the opposite of Van Jones is, what's his name? InfoWars guy, Alex Jones.
Yeah.
They both have Jones, right?
Yeah. I was going to say like him, because I was like face to face with him. And you could just see he's a con man. He's just like Trump. He's like a snake oilsman, just selling all these things. But he, there is that human aspect to him where he does have a sense of humor. He shared a couple of videos with him, and with Tim like crashing the InfoWars set and everything. So I mean, he does have a sense of humor, and I think there is also what's kind of interesting. He's a total synth head. Do you know that he's a synth?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. He loves playing the synthesizer. There's like, if you look at his like YouTube comments, I'll send it to you later. There's a comment of him like commenting on some synth page. Like look at that. I forget what it was, like some vintage synth, and it's like what? And then in one of his latest videos, it starts with him and it scrolls past his synths, and he's like standing in front of his synth rack, and there's all these like
shit.
Yeah, so I think we have a lot more in common than we think.
Funny?
And so, but I don't know why did I start talking about
Well,
that?
I mean, it's because it's fascinating. You're humanizing Alex Jones, which is...
So I think I think we have more in common than...
It's, and it's one of these things, like, because you look at like someone like Alex Jones, who's like clearly like stoking fears and outrage. And like, it's hard to believe that Alex Jones even believes like 80% of what he says.
He doesn't. He doesn't. He's just getting a reaction. Yeah.
Right. So, but then we look at, just to delve into this a little bit, like, let's look at this Pizzagate stuff, right? Like, this is where we're crossing the boundary between, disinformation and conspiracy theories and stoking people's irrational fears.
Yeah, and it's bringing the internet culture or whatever that is online into the real world.
Well, do you know about the theory of this whole Keck thing? And
I don't understand what that is.
Okay,
people
so
say that. Yeah.
Let me explain this to you in the best way I know how. So essentially, the alt-right essentially formed on the internet. It's a combination of white supremacy, radical European nationalism,
white genocide,
and what it's really made up of is a lot of younger kind of, and obviously older people too, but like a lot of young people who understand how the internet works. But another facet of the alt-right, which is not spoken about a lot, comes from the occult world, comes from like the Aleister Crowley magic, chaos magic stuff. And one of the theories and one of the things that has been happening around the web, and you've seen this in memes like Pepe the Frog, who's been co-opted and all these things, what they were trying to summon, they were doing magic, and this is spread through the alt-right, and they believe it worked, and maybe it did work. I mean, depending on how you view esoteric studies. What they were trying to do is summon an ancient Egyptian god of chaos called Kek.
Oh, okay.
All right, Kek. And Kek was going to be summoned by the champion of Kek, Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the chaos-inducing figurehead, the symbol of Kek, that was going to revolutionize the entire, world, the entire universe, bring back chaos into the universe. Now, some people wanted to summon Kek because they felt that this was something that was going to be good for their particular cause. Some people were doing it just because they wanted anarchy and they wanted everything blown up and, like an infantile teenager who's not happy with things. So if you look through, though, this actually becomes like a very scary, insidious thing that actually has way more roots. Like if you hear about like some angry, racist white person summoning an Egyptian god of chaos, you're like, whatever. But this is actually like a very, 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 very big movement. And in some ways you could say that it actually worked. And others you could say, well, these people are just insane and it just happened to align with, the current political climate and cultural climate. But this whole Kek thing starts to coalesce. You see things with like Pizzagate. Pizzagate is an obvious false story about a child sex ring run out of a place called Comet Ping Pong, which is a pizza place in DC. It's not that far from where I am right now. And I remember reading an article about 2 weeks ago from the guy who owns it, and he was saying, I'm getting so much hate mail, and like, he's like, what's so upsetting about this is like if people just did like really, really basic fact checking, like they would know. Like he's like, they're saying I run this out of my basement. Like I don't have a basement here. Like there's no basement. And so then, a few days ago, a guy came from North Carolina with an assault rifle and a pistol and got arrested in DC because he thought he wanted to see the child sex ring. He wanted to confront the people. So
insane. This
to me is what scares me a little bit more than Donald Trump and policy and, right-wing zealots and white supremacists even being close to the White House. It's not the concept of fake news. Fake news has been around forever. Let's be clear, where we get most of our news for our media institutions, like everyone notices this. You notice like the local news at night, everything is about murder, fear, death, rapings, kidnappings. That's because a long time ago, media magnets figured out that shit works. It keeps people interested. It keeps people tuned in. So it's not like it's a new thing, but now what's happening, and this is why I really refuse to use the term post-fact or post-truth, because what that does, it doesn't necessarily convince people of these stories, but it provides an element and a climate of enough distrust and misinformation that what people eventually start to do is go, fuck it. Nothing is true. Nothing is important. Nothing matters. And that is the most dangerous thing that can happen. So, it's going to, again, here's the antidote to that as I see it. If fake news and hate mongers and all of this nasty stuff is coming out, what do? Do the opposite. Flood the world with things that are genuine, which have artistic integrity, that have journalistic integrity, but do it in a way that isn't antagonistic. Again, like this is why I'm sure this is why we became friends and why I immediately like kind of got what you were doing however many years ago before you blew up and are internet famous now, man. But is because like I saw the real, one of the conversations I've been having on this podcast over the past few weeks is what makes a piece of art meaningful? What is it? Because if someone draws a circle, two people draw a circle, one draws a circle, another draws a circle. Circle looks almost the same. There is something that can make one person look at the circle and go, that's amazing. And the other one goes, it's just a circle. And so what we've been getting at in this podcast for really like prominent creators who've done amazing stuff, it's the essence of what you're communicating as you're creating the artwork or media that actually is the art and the media. It's not the moving images. It's not the colors. It's not the audio.
Right.
It's that, of course. But what it really is the person communicating their experience, the essence distilled down. And that's what people resonate with.
I think so. I mean, when I'm working on these videos, like I do feel like I'm like almost like shaving a piece of my whatever, my soul or whatever you would want to call it, like off, and not all of them, like,
right, of course.
But many of them, I do feel like I'm like drained, after I work on them, and I kind of like feel like I get such in the zone where I lose track of what time it is and what it could be, 3 in the morning, it could be, 10 at night or whatever, or whatever. I just lose track of all time. And I do think there's a personal, way of what I do. There is like a piece of my mind. It's a different way of communicating, I think, too. Rather than me, writing out my thoughts, I'm able to use this to communicate and maybe reach people differently and communicate something on a different level or get people thinking certain way that I'm not able to with my words, like I'm doing right now. I'm probably not communicating as well. I should make a video about this. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I think there's just finding a way to make, because I think a lot of stuff I do, I'm really making it for myself, and it's
why it's so good.
A way of it's a way of working through things or making sense of something that I don't totally understand, or just making myself laugh. And thankfully, enough people it resonates with enough people that it's for them too. You know what I mean? I'm not really trying to gear my stuff towards the fans or audience or whoever is watching, but thankfully I think it resonates with them.
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons that I think Tim Heidecker really got what you were doing, because I have always got the sense with what Tim and Eric and everyone in the Absolutely family has done.
Yeah.
They're not doing it because they think that people are going to like it. They may have a notion or an inkling that this is going to be enjoyed by other people, but they're doing it because it makes them laugh. It's funny to them. And that is infectious, especially if it's good, right? I mean, people, if you have shitty taste, what makes you laugh may not be what makes everyone else laugh.
Exactly.
But the authenticity of what is being, because I always like, a lot of people, some very talented, some people, emulate your style of video. There's clearly an influence, and there's some derivative stuff that's out there. But like
that's kind of weird. Sometimes that's weird for me to watch. Like
it must be right.
It's a little weird because sometimes it just. I mean, they get the zooms and they could probably, maybe edit better than me or whatever. But there's just something.
That's right.
Something a little off. You know what I mean?
That's right, because. Yeah. That's what I'm alluding to here is like, there's this thing that you're communicating through your videos and through your stuff. And especially the stuff where like I showed Alexis, my wife, your Easy Pass video. Obviously the first one, which I remember, but then the one where you're talking about how it gets to 150,000 views on YouTube. And we're dying laughing at it because like if you can structurally break it down why it's funny, but it's just hilarious. It's just like a really funny way of communicating and being. So, I mean, that to me, like you ask, like, what do we do? Like, how do we deal with this stuff? You're naturally, I mean, I'm sure you know this. You're helping so many people process such a difficult thing in their lives, because when they see like, and even if it's not Trump related, like the backer videos, right? Like I've watched that, the Jim Shorey My Girl thing, which did you even really
Kevin
edit
Shorey.
it?
Yeah, Kevin Shorey.
Did you edit
No,
that?
that was just straight. That was just straight.
I didn't think so.
That's insane.
Oh God, that guy is just like, I really want to get to know these people. Like, I want to have him on this show because, like, it's just like, what?
Yeah, like Jim Baker's grandson contacted me like 6 months ago, and he's a fan of my videos.
Amazing,
and even the Jim Baker stuff of his grandfather, which was like pretty nuts to find out. But he's, it's just it resonates, and I think he liked the way that I'm able to comment on this crazy stuff, through editing.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because it's just like you're editing videos of people who like may or may not have like serious mental illnesses. I mean, because like the backer stuff, again, I put him a little bit, I mean, probably a lot of it in the Alex Jones camp where there is no way he believes everything he's saying. He knows his base. He knows that people are interested. He knows he can sell these buckets and make, it's a hustle.
Well, I see him as like very similar to Trump, how he's using fear and scaring his audience into letting him profit, helping him profit and make money. And Trump used it, to become president. And actually, Jim Baker put a video out last week saying that Donald Trump called him and they had a 20-minute conversation and he thanked them for helping him win the presidency.
Like, how much do you want to know if that's actually true?
Oh,
like,
I believe it. He called Jones too. He called Alex Jones.
That I believe. I mean, Jones is, oh God.
But
I mean,
but yeah. Is it true? I mean, they could just be BSing, but anyway, there is that connection. I
believe it.
Trump has never said I disavow Alex Jones. He's called him a great guy. In fact,
that's right.
So
I mean, it's a way. It's a way of thinking about the world, right? If everything is just a tool in service of you getting something, then that will manifest in you selling buckets and you preaching religion that you may not actually believe in, that you have evidence of you violating, or you may, do what Donald Trump does, which is just kind of make up everything and not need to tell the truth because it's a tool for you. The problem is, as I see it, is like anyone. Granted, I don't know a ton of people who I've known some people though who actually think of themselves, think of the world like that. It is like a guaranteed recipe to being miserable. There's no end game to that except power and money. And like, look at the wealthiest people in the world. Like, I've had the privilege of knowing really, really poor people and really, really rich people.
Yeah.
And I can tell you there's literally no correlation between, there is correlation between like, if you're totally poor, it's hard to be happy. But like, once you're at a certain threshold, like, it doesn't matter how much you have. Like, if you're not focusing on the things that actually make you happy, it doesn't matter.
Trump's got to be miserable. I mean, he's so upset. He
really
does.
It's a cyclical thing, right? He thinks, well, I have all this money now. I grew up in privilege. You know what I need? I need power. And let's be clear, like, what I really think Trump wants more than anything, I just think he wants to be respected. I think he grew up in this gaudy, ostentatious family from Queens. He wanted to be accepted into the New York elite, the hoity-toity people who were always too good for him. And now he's muscled his way into the presidency, and now maybe this is opportunity. And it's like, you gotta feel bad for a guy who thinks
totally.
like that.
I mean, I don't see him having any friends. I don't like any real friends. I mean, he at Thanksgiving, he had Thanksgiving dinner with Don King and Fabio. I mean, are those his friends? Like, are those? Where was his family? Why
I want to hear that dinner conversation.
Apparently, he asked them who he should hire as Secretary of State. But that's so Fabio might help us out here.
Mitt Romney, right? I'm sure Fabio's a big Mitt Romney fan.
Yeah, he's a big Romney fan. Totally. And I mean, clearly Trump has these issues. I mean, about the way he looks, and I mean, he had a scalp reduction surgery years ago, and he had like all this tanning stuff that he puts on his body, and he's so concerned about his hands and the size of his genitalia, and everything, and it's just. He's clearly got some issues. And do you remember in the 80s, he was calling People magazine, to get all these reports of him. He would be like, hey, this is John Barron. I'm a publicist for Donald Trump. And it's clearly Trump himself. And he would say like, oh, I saw Trump out with Madonna last night. And, she didn't want to fuck him, but, or whatever. It's just like some weird, just planning all these like weird stories in there. So he's got some issues there that he wants to be respected, or he wants to. I don't even know what it is. Like, when will he be happy? I mean, he won't be. He's won at life right now. He's the number one guy on the planet, but he's
Time Man of the Year. The thing is that there's a hole in his
Man
heart.
Of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, he is today, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
There's a hole in his heart the size of his parents, probably. And that's by all accounts, Fred Trump was just a no nonsense piece of shit asshole.
Totally.
Like, he just, and you see the stories, like you hear the stories about Fred doing this to Donald. Then you hear the story of Donald going, I think it was either Don Jr. or Eric. He went to his dorm and like, he wasn't ready for something, and he like slapped him and made him cry and like get in your suit. So it's just like, it's
totally. I mean, and I think that's with everybody. I mean, even for me, I've had like some of my like comedy heroes, like, say good things about my videos, like Bob Odenkirk or whoever.
Yeah, he retweeted me the other day from a thing that was fucking nuts.
I saw that.
Like,
that's amazing.
That's
awesome. Amazing. Yeah. But then ultimately, like, I'm still at this point concerned. Like, does my dad like my videos? So it's weird, like that happens. But it does, just the way we're programmed. I guess we're concerned about what our parents think of us.
And in some ways, man, like we're lucky that we're playing it out on our stages.
Sure.
We don't have to do this in the public eye. But obviously,
and there's no nukes involved with what we're doing.
God,
So
I know. I mean, here's the thing. Like, here's my prognostication. I don't think this is going to be a pleasant 4 years. I think it's going to really affect people negatively across the country, especially people who voted for him, unfortunately, because these economic policies are not meant to help them. And that's going to open up some real serious wounds in this country that I think is going to take a very long time to rectify. That said, as more and more time passes, we're only a month out, I do see some of the tempers getting a little more kind of evened out. It's not as vitriolic. It's not as panicky as it was, because I think that's just also an impossible state to elect to remain in, always like a panic, fear-stricken state, even though people do it. But I think people will start to recognize, I'm hoping, we look at the Van Jones, we're looking at the people, I look at people like you who really are just doing great stuff. And it's not, no one would accuse you or say like Vic is doing, political work that's going to change the climate of the country.
I would never say that. Yeah.
But the truth is, man, like what helps someone more when they read an article about Steve Bannon's ties to the alt-right, or when they watch a video of Trump, saying his favorite, or a Vine of Trump saying, why did they get rid of Vine, Vic?
Oh my God.
Why
don't get me started. I'm so upset about it.
Why did they do this?
I don't know. It was a perfect way to, to get your thoughts out there quickly and in 6 seconds, and the looping aspect of it could be like almost like you're meditating watching some of these.
It really is. I know.
You can watch some of these like over and over and over, but I just don't I don't know.
I don't know
why they did that. But I forget what I was going to say. I was going to say something. I don't know. You got me thinking about Vine, and now I'm all sad now.
I know, because it was like the biggest blow. I thought it was a joke. And like, I got to say, like, since they announced it however many, like a couple months ago or something, like I have barely been on Vine, because it's hard to how do you go to a platform that is about to be killed? It's
it's not good. It's not good.
It's so sad. But yeah, I mean, essentially what I was saying is like, when you look at a video that you're making, that feeling that people get from it, that actually affects people in a much more substantial and beneficial and practical way than reading a news story about something you have absolutely no control over. Because that's where I am, just based on your concerns, what you say about Trump, I think the biggest thing it seems like you're concerned about is this guy. He's scary. We don't know what he's going to do. He potentially shows the inclination to want to fuck up a lot of our institutions in our country, and that's terrifying. Yeah. But we also don't have a tremendous amount of control over what he does. But what we do control is how we process the reactions towards what he does and what we do when we get up every morning. I'm sure you're like me. You get up, you look at your kids, you're super happy, you're incredibly grateful. It's hard to understand how this can even be your life. Right. And then you go and do your work for the day, and you do the things that you're accustomed to doing. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes ups and downs. But that, if we all focus on that more than this external kind of scary, there's a quote that I use a lot, and this I think is more applicable for this time than really any other quote I can think of. And it's by a great Tibetan teacher, Chogyam Trungpa, who's dead, but really awesome, interesting guy. But his quote is, the bad news is you're falling through the air with no parachute, nothing to hang on to. The good news is there's no ground. And that really is what life is. Like, we like to think that there's a ground and that we're walking on it and everything is okay. And then we see something like Donald Trump happen, or Brexit, or some horrible thing, 9/11. Then we realize, holy shit, we're not on solid ground. This isn't as real and tangible as we'd like to think. But then you get this amazing, goes right back into the transitional times in our culture. This is the time of the most opportunity. This is when we get to start fleshing out the systems where we want for our kids. Like, the truth is, Vic, like, we're probably not going to change the world that much for the rest of our lives, but our kids and their grandkids, they're going to be living in completely different systems, in completely different paradigms, right? God knows how the world is going to look. I mean, I always think about Think of now, 2016. Think of someone who's 85 years old and what the world was like.
Oh, yeah,
85
totally.
years, like
Right.
what? Like that's fucking nuts.
Right.
That's what it's going to be like for us, if not more so, because of technology. So,
Oh yeah. And it moves so
I
fast.
always right. I mean, I always just try to bring it back down. The only thing we can do to enact change outside in the world is to work on ourselves. That's it.
Yeah.
That's literally it. And we do that in a number of ways. We do that, by working with ourselves, trying to understand what our faults are, trying to understand what we can do, but also just doing exactly what you're doing, which is creating art and media and comedy that shit is changing the
Yeah.
world. Like if you don't think like Tim has had, like how many lives do you think Tim has made better? Right.
Oh,
like
yeah,
I
yeah.
can count 100 just the people I know, hundreds like that's real power.
Right.
That's the real
And I
change.
think- And I think a sign of knowing that you're doing something good that's resonating with people is when you have the people that hate you that for what you're doing.
Right.
And I think that's an opportunity. I haven't figured out exactly how to go about it, but I think that's an opportunity to talk to that person or to find out what their issues are, because like I get so much hate mail from people that for my videos, and even like the Jim Baker video and so like just so much that it's an opportunity to figure out what their issues are, with me or with my views or whatever it is, and then possibly move ahead and try to enlighten them or whatever it may be.
Do you engage with them?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's hard not to. I get it. Not the ones that are personal attacks on me, like the way I look or just anything. Like, I get some horrible, gross, like.
I think I saw someone call you a tub shit. the
Oh
other day.
yeah. That's not even that bad. There's some like real like horrible stuff that's just like all you can do is laugh at it, really. But
Right.
But people like that are insulting on that level. I don't engage with.
Of course.
But if somebody has like a legitimate critique, like why don't you go after Hillary for whatever it is, or why don't you make fun of Hillary or whatever, and I'll engage with them and say I don't think that's funny or whatever it is, the biggest one I got when I think it was the second debate video, or maybe it was the first one where Trump told Hillary that he's going to put her in jail.
Right.
When he's president, he's going to jail her. And all these Trump supporters are like, why didn't you put that in there? That was the funniest line. And like, I don't see, I don't think that's funny.
Not funny.
It's scary. It's scary as hell. And,
Horrible.
And I want to make light of it. So that was just my choice. But yeah. So, I mean, I think that's what we have to keep doing and moving ahead. And as far as the people that, come at me or other people, I don't know. Maybe you have a good solution for that. What do you got?
I have. I mean,
I don't have much.
you're lucky. I mean, this is why. I mean, you're a national treasure, my man. Because honestly, like you doing what you do, you're naturally going to get pushback and complaints from people who think you're, making fun of or have an agenda, rather than it's just being totally absurd and funny things that you're putting out there. But what's good is like, I know you're a really good guy. A lot of other people, when met with that type of stuff, will just say like, fuck you, I don't care. Or like they'll do what people do to you when they steal your stuff. And you say, hey, like, why did you steal my stuff? And they'll be like, fuck you, what does it matter? This is the internet. This is how it works. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I know.
What are you talking about?
Right.
This is not that. It's not the internet. That's not how it works.
No, it's not the
It's not how it's like if I buy a car and put it in my driveway, you can't just come over and take it. It's not your car. Like I fucking made it. So
right.
Yeah. I mean, what I would suggest is this, and I don't think this is something you actually have to do anytime soon, but you're being given a tremendous opportunity because of who you are and the type of guy you are to actually get like a ton of contact with the quote unquote other side.
Right.
Over time, man, like you're going to hear more opinions. Like I mean, this would become a full-time job if you just did this at a protocol. But like when you get the sense, when you get an email from someone who's just upset, but you sense that there's something real there, and just talk to them. Just say like, hey, listen, like I know what you mean. Like I would actually like to hear what you're really upset about, because like you do that with 5-10 people a year, you'll probably end up changing a lot of their minds. You'd be like, I'm not doing this to be a hateful, nasty guy. Like I would like to see. I don't think he's a horrible person deep down. Like I think there's a lot of good there. maybe even if you don't believe it, but when you use those words and you meet people on common ground, it's amazing how quickly it's like Trump, right? Like when Trump is saying, fuck Obama, Obama's the worst. He's not even a real citizen. Then he goes and meets him, and now we get all these reports. He's calling him every day.
Right.
Because he met him. You can't say to someone so hard to say to someone's face, like, fuck you dumb shit. Like when you're on an internet and behind a keyboard, sure, a lot easier. So, I mean, I think over like I will not try to prognosticate about your career although I mean I'm very confident like you're gonna have a very long and successful and fruitful career in a lot of ways I'm sure that we can't even imagine, but like you are gonna be presented with the opportunity of engaging with people who maybe can be swayed a little bit, not the people who are just hateful and just spewing rhetoric and just angry, but there are going to be those people who genuinely like don't understand. Maybe they saw a video of yours before and they liked it, like a Chubby Checker thing, and then they saw a political one, they're like, oh, now I don't like him, and they write to you.
Yeah, that's a big thing, definitely.
It's the same. Honestly, more than me having any answers for this stuff, like I'll just point to the people who I think are doing such a great job. And like we said before, Van Jones, man, that guy is so tuned in into exactly what we're supposed to be doing, not only from like a quote unquote spiritual level on how to approach this stuff, but also just like a very practical human, how do we deal with this difficult climate that we're in right now? And I mean, like, and I'll say this for anyone listening who experiences the same stuff that you and I do with the news and the social media, consciously try to seek out and curate what you consume on the web, who you hang out with, what you look at. Try to, if for every 2 articles you read about some Trump thing, try to find 3 others that are uplifting or positive, or some way that you can like give to a local charity, or donate some proceeds of something to this, like, because that naturally combats the negativity that's
that's one thing that like has really I think kickstarted, or like giving to charities that need it, that possibly will be affected by Trump, or the just giving money where possible, volunteering wherever you can. I think that's something that is a positive, because it really has. I've noticed a lot of people that are doing more of that now.
That's right. Like the uptick in hate crimes exists too, but the uptick in generosity and compassion also happens too. It's like there's that Fred Rogers quote, Mr. Rogers, who always says, in the time of crises, oh God, he's so great. But he's like, in the time of crises, my mom always used to say, don't look at the crises, look at the people who are helping. There's always people helping. There's always people who rally immediately. And if you just tune into those people, maybe you won't have such a bleak view of the world and that everything is going down this death spiral, but really like this is maybe something that needed to happen. We needed to shine a light on this. And now like, just like we all have to, I'm a big Carl Jung fan. And one of his big things was the shadow side. Everything has a shadow side. And if you don't pay attention to it and you don't acknowledge it, you're going to have a fuckload of problems individually, collectively, nationally, globally. And you better believe what we've been doing as a civilization for 3,000, if not more, longer years. We've been ignoring this shit. We like to pretend that everything is okay. Sweep it under the rug. There's no problems. Everything's good.
I see Trump as like not like he's not a liberal. He's not a Democrat or a Republican. He's just Trump, and everything's for himself, and he's not really a part of any party. And I think that it helps me to think about that, like the people that I know, like my parents' friends and my in-laws' friends and everything, that voted for Trump usually just vote along party lines. They always vote Republican, and I think now they're kind of seeing why me and other people were so scared beforehand, because like a lot of them just weren't paying attention to every little thing that happened in the news that Trump did. They weren't aware of every horrible thing that Trump did. So I think that, when it came time to vote, they're like, I can't vote Democrat. I can't vote for, Hillary. I didn't like Bill or whatever, for whatever reason. So I'm just going to stick with what I do. So that's, I think way more than any of the racists or the or all those people. I think good people were just doing what they normally do.
That's right. Habitually.
So, right. And they just didn't differentiate Trump from a Republican.
And, and the mechanism of culture and media makes it easier to coerce people than ever before. And
Sure.
I think a lot of people fell prey to that and continue to, which means like, right, the necessary antidote to that, just keep talking about other stuff. Keep
Right.
mentioning things like, very few people, if you said, hey, you want to talk about Donald Trump or do you want $100? People want the $100. They don't give a shit about Donald Trump compared to $100. Like, I don't care about this. So try to find things that are the equivalent to $100, whether that's a funny video, whether that's a really nice piece or a music piece, whatever it is. Like, just get out there and create and do the things.
Exactly.
And align your intention with what you're doing, whatever it is.
Right.
So, dude, this has been awesome.
This has been fun, man.
I love having these conversations, man. Yeah, we'll do it again sometime soon. There's always going to be enough fodder for us to talk about.
when he wins his second term, we can do it again. How about that?
Holy
or
Jesus.
his fourth term. We'll see.
Oh God, when he's elected official emperor of the United States. Jesus Christ. Man. Well, all right. Before we wrap up, when I had you on last time, I didn't have this format I have at the end. So I have 3 quick questions for you and then one large one. So what's your favorite color?
Favorite color? I guess orange would be. I like. I prefer like color combinations. I think.
What's your favorite color combination?
I think I like the color or the cover of like Pet Sounds. Isn't that like orange and green?
Yeah.
I think there's some. So I think that's what it would be.
All right, the cover of Pet Sounds your favorite color. Got it. That's awesome. It's a great answer, man.
Yeah.
What's your favorite number?
Favorite number. Well, I'm the Vic the fourth. I'm the fourth Vic. But I think I have to go with 7 because as my dad always reminds me that I was born on August 7th. I was 7 pounds, 7 ounces, and I was 7, whatever the inches were. It was something with a number 7 in it.
Yeah.
So it's my lucky number, lucky 7.
That was my first favorite number. It's a very mystical number.
Did yours change then?
Yeah. Mine has changed over the years. My favorite number currently, I mean, I have a bunch, but 13 is my favorite number.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Ooh,
that's a good one. I love it.
Yeah.
What is your favorite animal?
Favorite animal? Oh, it's got to be the dog. I like the dog. And I also weirdly have this weird fascination with miniature ponies. They're really
Miniature
goofy looking.
Dude.
Yeah,
So
you ever
here's
see
the
them
deal.
run and everything?
We're moving.
They're like dogs, basically.
No, I have. So we're moving to the Hudson Valley.
Yeah,
in
I
like
saw
a few
that. That's
weeks.
awesome.
Yeah, and when we move up there, we're basically in like rural farmland. My mom lives not too far. My aunt has a farm. Okay, and she has miniature ponies.
Oh my God.
When we move up there, you come up with the fam, dude.
I would
we'll
love
hang out
that.
with some miniature ponies.
Oh my God.
So it's a
I'm
whole
so
farm.
there.
Yeah,
I'm so ready.
I got you.
I'm way too excited about this.
It's really gonna be fun. He's got a lot
That's
of other
great.
animals too. Yeah. it's
Oh,
really
okay.
cool.
But I only care about the miniature.
Yeah, not
ponies,
only
so.
miniature ponies. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get a pick.
great, man.
Okay. Last question. What is a practical tip that has helped you in your life?
Oh boy. A practical tip. I think just create things and create things for yourself. I mean, if you're artistic, do what you do, and don't try to please other people with what you create. Just make yourself like for instance, I make myself laugh. I try to and create stuff for yourself and make yourself happy with what you do, and hopefully people will resonate.
Man, couldn't have said it better myself, dude. Thank you again so much for
Sure,
coming
man.
on. I'm
Anytime.
glad you seem to be in pretty good spirits. I'm sure
Right now until I check the Twitter feed and
hey man,
no,
hit
I
me
won't.
up whenever you're feeling down.
I will.
And I'll try to give you a pep up, man. Dude, thanks so much. Really
Sure
appreciate
thing,
it.
buddy.
All right, have a great day, man.
All right, you too, man. Take care.
Bye, peace. thank you to everyone who's listening past the music. You guys are the best. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Vic. Support him. Go watch his videos over at superdeluxe.com. Follow them on social media. Follow him on social media. Go do that. Follow Vic on social media too while you're at it. You can follow me on social media. Just follow everyone on social media. Seriously, lots of love to everyone listening. Have very happy holidays. If this is in the future and the holidays have passed already, they're coming around again. So happy holidays to you too. I will see you next week with some very cool guests. That's it. Bye-bye.